I want to welcome in now our political panel, starting with BNC political contributor Amisha Cross and RNC national spokesperson Paris Dennard to discuss some of the key issues that Congress is set to face. Thanks for being with us today and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Amisha, let's start with you. On the top of Democrats' to-do list is President Biden's Build Back Better Act. What's next?
Well, I think that because of all of the wrangling we saw over the past few months as it related to Build Back Better, what we see now is going to be an intersection of what they can actually get passed and what they cannot. Build Back Better, in effect, is dead. I want to make that very clear. What we're going to see is Democrats try to parcel out specific parts of Build Back Better as their own single bills, because they know that they're not going to get Joe Manchin on board. They know that there are certain elements that Kristen Sinema will not get on board either. And because of those narrow margins within the Senate, they have to make sure that they have all Democratic votes to be able to get anything through here. So to make that quite clear, it makes sense for them to push for things like paid family leave, to push for things like those child tax credits. But they're not going to get every single thing that we saw on the Build Back Better agenda. And I think that the American people have to be aware of that. And Democrats have to not oversell what they can actually get done here, because quite frankly, the numbers just aren't in their favor as it relates to a huge overhaul that was going to be FDR-esque, because they don't have the FDR numbers in Congress.
And Paris, speaking to Amisha's point, Build Back Better basically dead. Can we see aspects of it move forward, though, like paid family leave and better benefits for women on maternity leave?
I think that the Democrats in the Senate are certainly going to try to push forward their agenda to get something done that closely resembles what what I call Build Back Broke was trying to do. But ultimately, they didn't have the numbers and they were unable to do anything in a bipartisan manner. Look, when President Trump was in office, they were able to get things done in a bipartisan fashion. Things can be done, but they have to have sound policy that benefits everyone and things that don't create more inflation, increase the deficit, and make it more difficult for single parents and working families and middle-class Americans to thrive in this economy. This economy is not doing well under the Biden administration, and having bills like this are problematic. And that's why you had opposition from people on the Democratic side, Sinema and Manchin, saying that they couldn't do it because of the economic impact that it would have, or on a negative side, for the American people and those that they serve.
Amisha, even though the Senate will vote on filibuster rules changes to advance stalled voting legislation, do you think that we'll finally see some progress?
No, and I don't think so, because we have to be mindful that politics will come to play. To a point that was just made by Paris, yes, there was some bipartisan reach across the aisle when it came to certain elements of the Trump administration, but that was because Democrats came to play ball for the betterment of the American public. We don't see that happening for Republicans at all. They are not a part of these negotiations because they've effectively X'd themselves out. We know that the agenda of the Build Back Better Act was largely lauded by the American people. They wanted the things that were within that package. What we see is some stalwarts, very few. We're talking about Manchin, we're talking about Sinema, who don't and are not representative of the entire American public. What we see are people who have been bought and sold by corporate interests. What we see are people who are literally bowing to those corporate interests and are utilizing that against the will of the American people. And again, Republicans have absolutely no room to talk because they have not come to the table at all. They have dug their heels in the sand. And regardless of what the American people need, I love that he talked about single parent households and single parent families. One of the things that helped them the most was the extension of those child tax credits, which helped to eliminate child poverty by more than 50% in this country, a country that stands as the wealthiest nation on earth, but has some of the largest child poverty of any nation in the developed world. We have to take that into consideration when we're talking about the importance of many aspects of Build Back Better.
And so, Paris, if Democrats continue to struggle with delivering on some of their promises to voters, do you think we'll see Republicans take back control of Congress? And if so, what can we anticipate that they'll do?
Well, there's no doubts are failing when it comes to living up to the things that they promised they were going to be able to do. So if you're someone who cared about police reform, they failed on that. If you're someone who cares about the border, haven't done anything on that. If you're someone who cares about the rising cost of inflation and gas prices and just the out of control spending, that if you were someone who are concerned about COVID-19 and how the administration said they were going to get that under control and fix it and finish it and eradicate it, they failed on every single measure. And so I think you will see a red wave that's going to continue into the midterm elections in November with Republicans taking back control. And what Republicans are going to do is have a framework on on policy that is focused on what is best to empower, uplift the American people, putting the American people first, putting the American family, small businesses first, and not have policies that are going to raise taxes, policies that are, because the middle class inflation that we see right now, the lower income Americans, those people are feeling the burden of this administration's failed policies because of this inflation. That is a tax on the poor. That's a tax on single parents. That's a tax on the middle class. That's a tax on the working poor. Republicans are going to come into office because the American people are going to side with them, with us, because they understand that things can be better, things can be done, and they can look at the contrast between what happened during the Trump years and what happened during just the first year of Biden, Harris, and see how much of a disaster it is. And they will ask the simple question, am I better off right now than I was 12 months ago for my friends, my family, my community? For most Americans, especially those in our community, the answer is no.
All right. Well, appreciate both of you joining us here on BNC Live and for your insight this afternoon.